Hi, my name is Ashley Carice, and in this video, I'm going to share with you how to know who you are and how to know your value. Sure that this was like the number one question when I was growing up, and I didn't know until I met my husband, Michael, explained to me, and I feel like the answer was more simple than I expected, but at the same time, it was very weighty. So, what is your identity? That I see it. And here are two methods that I use to realize who I am. So, the first method that I use is I look at God and I just close my eyes and I ask him what he thinks of me. I ask him, how does he look at me? He shows me that I am created in his image, that I am his daughter. He looks at me with absolute unconditional love, and he looks at me like I am his princess and that I am just like basically perfect and just literally so connected to him. And he just looks at me with so much love, and I can just feel like I just know that he loves me so deeply. And so the second method that I use is I imagine myself in heaven and I'm seated next to God, and I imagine myself basically being in the ultimate state of myself, like the glowing goddess version of myself, and I have no lack, I have no sickness, and I am just literally feeling so connected to good and truth, and I have every need met, and I'm basically just the most beautiful essence version of myself. And so both of these things, I refer to those as my spirit, the person that I see when I'm looking at the ultimate version of myself. I'm looking at my spirit. And so what I like to basically share with you is a new perspective that I haven't really heard anyone else talk about, but that I feel like has really clicked for me. From my perspective, your identity is basically the ultimate version of yourself. It is you, but without any limits, without any fear, any lack, any faults, without any striving. It is beautiful. It is heavenly. It is your essence. It is the core of who you are, and it is absolutely invaluable. And it is incomparable and of equal value as it is to every other human being. That is who you really are. It's perfect. And I personally would argue that it's not only who you really are, but being in that place and that state of mind is actually the way we were born. It's actually natural to be connected and to live out of that place. And I think that that is something that is so opposite of anything that we're taught. But I would say that it is actually our natural state. So, right now, many people on the planet, they're not taught this. They are brought into the world, and their culture and the people around them are telling them that they are wrought with sin and they are evil to the core. But let's go ahead and break down, that belief. So go ahead and look at a newborn baby. Just imagine looking at a newborn baby. See it. See who it is. See its spirit and the look in its eyes. Would you ever look at that newborn, absolutely perfect little baby and say, you're evil, you are bad to the bone? Or does it grow up with people giving it false identities and develops into someone that's carrying a ton of pain and weight that it didn't have when it was born? Now let's go ahead and look at the baby and recognize that this baby that is just born, it is valuable and it has life in it, even though it doesn't actually give you anything. It's not doing any skills that are providing for you, that are taking care of you. A little baby, when it's first born, it's not going to do your taxes. And yet you would never look at that baby and say, you're not enough because you can't take out the trash. So you're so worthless. Like, that would be so wrong to do. Am I right? So where is this baby's value coming from? What makes it so valuable if it doesn't come from what it's doing in the way that it's providing? The thing that Michael and I discovered is that it comes from God, and it's given to you the moment that you reach the earth, and it's something that you receive as an inheritance from God himself. And he created us with an immeasurable amount of love and value. Let's go ahead and imagine something else. Let's imagine that you take your spirit that is perfect in heaven and beautiful, connected to God, and you bring them down into earth. And let's say that they are walking around the streets and they're in a city, and somebody comes up to them and they try to rob your spirit. And your spirit, like, how would it respond? For me, when I imagine my spirit, I imagine that it would look at that person and not only know its identity, but know their identity, and can see that it's so sad that they're in a place that they literally are so desperate that they believe that this is their only way of receiving provision. I would look at that and I would be like, oh my goodness, you poor soul. Like, how else can I help you? Stop everything. Like, I'm so sorry that this is the place that you're in. And it would have compassion. It would have literally just so much love for that person. So that is the way that I see it. So I don't know how you would respond, but I imagine that if you knew that, you were fully in abundance, you had no lack, you had no even like fear in any way, like it's like all of that was gone, you would look at that person and all you would feel for them is love. That's how I feel. So I inherently recognize that I, as my spirit, have my own culture. So that culture that I carry with me at all times as my spirit, it has no lack. It has no sadness, but it does have love and kindness. And the culture in itself isn't who I am, but who I am carries its own culture. And when I use this as a guide, I see if I'm an identity. Isn't that cool? Okay, so I'm not done yet. So now I want to share with you some of what I believe that you are not. Some of the things that I personally used to use as identifiers for who I am, and things that I no longer believe. So when I was growing up, I used to write lists of like quirky things about me, things that made me unique. They made me special, and most of them weren't good things. They were like that I eat messy. It's like, that's who I am. Now I know that's part of my identity. And I remember Michael looking at me and being like, you don't have to do that. And when he told me that, I was so offended. I was like, you're telling me not to be who I am. That is my identity. I identify as this person. And the crazy thing is that I was able to overcome this and recognize that who I am is not based off of quirks. It's not based off of, what you do in this life. But let's go ahead and get back onto the topic. So, what are you not? The way that you dress and your lifestyle, it does not equal who you are. It's not your identity. Your job and your success in life, your social status, those things do not equal who you are. Your race, your beliefs, your sexuality and your religion, it's not equal to who you are. So your hobbies, what you watch, what you've experienced, all of those things, they actually don't equal to who you are. How good you are at art, music, any other type of performance does not equal to who you are. Your personality types, all of these different quizzes that you've been trying to find your identity and your purpose in. The last thing is who you are is not based off of what other people say that you are. And so for me, this was a really big one because I used to listen to what other people said and believed that whatever they said was my identity. And, I would go into school and the boys would be like, oh, she's, a blonde. She's a dumb blonde. And I was like, okay, well, I can play that role. I can be a dumb blonde. I can trip over things and make people laugh because I'm so silly. And, I could play into that character and identify as that. But in reality, that was never who I was. And I was really smart and I was capable of so much more than I was giving myself credit for. But you would never have known that because I believed that that was my identity. And I became that because I believed that. And so in reality, that was never who I was. And your value doesn't come based off of what other people will say. Let's go ahead and get back into another exercise. So imagine with me that there's a person that lived on an island their entire life. They are in a small tribe, and this person is a man, and he is the best at picking coconuts. He's really good at hunting. He's really good at running fast on rocks. And everyone in his tribe looks up to him as the leader, as someone that is important, that is valuable because of everything that he's doing. And so now let's say that you take that exact same person, you pick him up, you move him over to a city like New York, you drop him down, and now that person doesn't have any coconut trees. That person doesn't have hunting. They're not really, hunting downtown, and they're also not running on the rocks. And, that person in that moment, would you look at them and say that they have less value because of what they're doing? I would say, really, their value doesn't change. So let's say that you take that person and you give them a job, and everybody around them is looking at them like they're barbaric, and their boss is looking at them and being like, I make a lot of money. I really value having an employee that can type really fast, that can dress really well, that's good at sales skills. And they look at them like they don't have any value. Does that person actually lose value because of the place that they're in? But let's go ahead and keep going. Let's say that you take the boss that's really good at making money and you bring him into the culture of the person that's from the island. You bring them into their tribe, and now they don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to, provide value. Like, everyone on the island is looking at them now like they are the weakest link. That person is not less valuable. And so who would you say is more valuable? The person that is, in the city versus the person that's in the tribe? I would say that they are both equally as valuable, and it's never been based off of what they're doing. I would say they were born with equal value. And I would say that it's not based off of what other people's perspectives are or the culture that they're in. And there is nothing that either of them could have done to earn more value. And there's nothing that they could have done to lose more value than what they already had. I would say it is never changing and it is everlasting. And I feel like it's so incredible that your value and your identity never changes. So basically, the entire video is all about teaching you that you are the most incredible person with all the potential inside of you. And I believe that that is who you really are. It is the real you, and everything else are things that are not you and things that you added onto you because of lies of the world. I would say literally so many people are taught that they're not enough, that they're taught that they are their bad performances, their mistakes. They're taught all of these things, and those things feel so much more real. And it takes actually a lot of discipline in order to let those go and become who you really are. And I would say that getting to that point is possible, and being free of lies is so possible. And I want you to know that, like, it's so exciting to know who you really are. It is exciting that that is the real you, and that everything else was never you, ever. You were born literally perfect. So I believe that when people are talking about dying to themselves, what they're really talking about is dying to the false identity that they believed was them, and taking on their true identity, which is who they really are at the core. You are your spirit. You are the most beautiful person, and the times that you're not living out of that place are times where you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting your identity, and it's sad because you can actually mess up a lot of things and not receive a lot of things that God actually really wants you to receive by forgetting. And so I know that this is a lot. It was so, much for me. And when my husband first started explaining it, it took me a long time for it to click and for me to recognize that it's possible to live out of this place all the time. Basically, I would say you are who you really are once you unlearn all the things that you've learned. And it's not hard to do, but I would say most people are not actively acting like their true identities. And it's really sad because nobody was taught that they could even do that. They didn't know that it was possible. And in my last video, I talked about how a lot of people are using bad tools and that they're afraid to try because their value has been coming from performance. And if they, don't perform perfectly, they are afraid that they'll lose their value and they'll fail. And in failing, they'll lose their worth. And that's not ever gonna make them feel like trying. They'll feel like they're never enough. And the crazy thing is that in me sharing all of the things that I've just shared with you, you're already enough. You literally don't have to be afraid of anything. You don't ever have to feel afraid of not knowing how valuable you are. And the way that I find my value is by looking to God. And He literally tells me, you are, He just looks at me and I know. It's like I just genuinely know who I am. I know my value. I know everything that I need to know in order to keep creating and going after what I feel like God's put on my heart. And so I know that that was a lot. There has been so many things that I've said in this video, and I thought it was important to go into as much depth as I could. But this is not the last video that I have. I have another video coming up and I'm gonna share it with you. It's about your soul and taking authority over your soul and the power that you can receive from doing so. So if you like this video, please share it, and I'll see you in the next video.